So I don't know if I brushed it. Basically, the land laser method of docking is where you just select the docking port of the target vessel as your target, and then press the auto SAS target button on the nav ball, and then just fly the ships together, and they'll actually stay locked on, and you haven't got to worry about using autopilot because the ships just stay aligned. Here we are. Get that one pointing towards the target, but then look, the space plane sort of veered off to the side something, and I was like, what? Why did that happen? And it took me a moment to realise I nearly knocked out the solar panels of the mothership. I realised because the control point of the aeroplane at the moment is one of the crew capsules, which are actually offset from the docking port. They're off to the side. So, although it's not by much, it does make a significant difference when we're talking about the tiny diameter of the junior-sized docking port. So in a minute, you see cotton on. There we are. Job made. You can see suddenly the alignment jerked a bit. Now, we try docking again. Works beautifully. So now, in an ideal world, I would... well, first of all, I'm going to transfer all the liquid fuel into the mothership, and I'm going to go on EVA in a second to take all the science points from the lander, and then we will just, I don't know, lower our lathe orbit so that we're on a suborbital trajectory, undock the lander so that it burns up, doesn't get left in space, and then, re-enter orbit ourselves, and go on our merry way back to Kerbin. But, as I said, I missed a couple of key moments to acquire science, that being in space high above Lathe, and in space high above Joule. So I'm going to splurge a bit on our Delta V budget. I think we've got enough. We're just about having enough, I think, to lug this lander out into Joule orbit so that we can get science points from space high above Lathe and space high above Joule. Unfortunately, this does mean that it's going to get left stuck in Joule orbit. Maybe I'll do a follow-up mission at some point where we go and recover it, basically, or I don't know, whack a satellite dish on it and call it a probe. Don't know yet, but we need to do something with it. It's not great for the solar bears, is it? Solar pears, like the solar apples. Great, really messed that up, didn't I? But we're going to carry on anyway. Yeah, let's go. So there we are. We're on an escape trajectory out of Lathe. We're now in space high, which means we can perform all of our science experiments again, do a crew report as well, go on EVA, gather all the science points. I'm just going to play the footage back quite quickly now because you know what this looks like by now. Collect all the data. Maybe I could read the science reports. No, that's too much effort. Let's talk about sandwiches. We bought a new toaster, guys, recently. I don't know if anyone has seen the insane live stream I did, where I decided, stupid idea, to go to the Mun without using time warp, which meant that literally it was like an 18-hour mission. It was all in real time. It was one of the most stressful missions I've ever done, because I also vowed to not use quick saves, because that's kind of also tampering with the flow of time, which was something I was trying to avoid by not using time warp. So I wasn't using quick saves either. So when it came to the Mun landing, which was like 11 hours into the mission at that point, I was so stressed and scared that I was going to mess something up. Like, I'm only human. Like you saw in this video, I deployed the drone shoots of the plane whilst we were doing our lathe descent, which would have been nearly spelled disaster. And I was worried about doing something like that on the Mun, or just overthinking it, overstressing it, and then starting to burn too late or too soon. It was very stressful. But anyway, there was a point to all of this. When I was talking, I'm going to talk about sandwiches. I know you're riveted to hear this story. I think sort of just as we entered the Mun sphere of influence, so this is like, say, like 10 hours in, 11 hours in, something like that, suddenly the stream cut out. And the reason for this is because, for me, it was about 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd just woken up. I just let the stream run overnight without any commentary. I'd just woken up, and we decided to make some breakfast. My hands are clean from this. I had some crunchy nut cornflakes with semi-skimmed milk. Kellogg's, if you'd like to sponsor my channel, hook me up. I love crunchy nut cornflakes. But my girlfriend, Beth, decided to make some toast. So she put the bread in the toaster. You guys know how to make toast, right? Pushed it down. Again, you guys know toasters work, don't you? And then about 10 seconds later, there was a big blue flash. The toaster just stopped working, and all of the power sockets downstairs, like the whatever. I very rarely go to Pol and Bop, to be honest. I mean, Pol, if they just fix the terrain glitches with it, then that would be great, but you know, I don't even know if it has been fixed. I usually avoid Pol for that reason, to be honest, because it has this horrible terrain glitch where you'll just crash into nothing constantly. It's just, I don't know, it's the terrain height is different to the graphics or something. I'm not quite sure. That's just one thing that's annoying about Pol. But you know, maybe graphics revamp is always welcomed. You may notice I saved a bit of fuel here just then by doing a Tylo gravity assist to get ourselves into dual orbit. I usually do this kind of maneuver when getting into dual orbit, and I know a lot of my KSP video making colleagues do similar things. So I'm not going to talk about it too much in this video. There are a number of different dual missions you can watch that kind of showcase the gravity assist a little bit better. Maybe I'll put a link in the description if I remember of a previous mission I've done which uses a Tylo gravity assist, and I might explain it a little bit more, but really just play around with the maneuver nodes, get your dual encounter to intersect Tylo's orbit at some point before your periapsis around dual, get your Tylo encounter, and then just get the orbit nice and close to Tylo, and you'll just see, if you zoom out on the map screen again, that your dual orbit will no longer be an escape trajectory. It will actually circularize you, and then you can just fine-tune it from there. I would recommend just going to dual and just playing around with the Move Node Maker, and you'll just get it. But that's all in the past for this mission. We've actually got our dual capture. Now we're going to loop back around and encounter Tylo again and perform our capture burn. Now, because we saved all that fuel, we actually have excessive amounts of liquid fuel in that nuclear transfer stage, so it would be a shame that we'll be ditching it with so much fuel left over. But, you know, I do like engineering in a little bit more Delta V into my missions than I might necessarily need, because I like to plan for any sort of unexpected complications or outcomes I wasn't anticipating at the time. And hey, you know, hopefully there is a craft file for this in the video description, so you may not be quite as efficient at the flight as I was in this video, and you might appreciate that extra Delta V. So there's another reason why it's always good, at least for me at least, to add a little bit of extra Delta V to my transfer stages. And this is no SSTO mission. I'm not aiming for any kind of hyper efficiency or, you know, cutting edge engineering. I'm not too fussed about it being, you know, slightly overbuilt for what it is. So now we're in low Tylo orbit. So I started having a look at the map screen, trying to find a point of interest to land, but ultimately it all looks pretty bad and pretty samey, so as long as I land somewhere relatively flat, I'll be happy. So we can initially begin our deorbit using the nuclear transfer stage, just that it ends up crashing into the surface of Tylo and leaves nothing like debris in orbit, and then we can start our actual proper landing burn with the cheetah engines. Now this is like a two-stage lander design, and again it has much more Delta V than what it really needs, because I wanted to make sure that we were landing on a flat spot. So if it turned out our landing trajectory put us on like a slope or a very mountainous area, I guess I could reload a quick save, but I wanted to just have the facility here to actually fine-tune where we landed. So if we started landing in an undesirable place and quickly start burning radial out again and then readjust our trajectory, it's nice to know that we have the extra Delta V here to enable us to do that and be a bit more picky with where we land. So we can see we're about to use up the fuel in that top stage. We can detach it, add the SRBs to it, because if I didn't add SRBs it would probably just decouple, but because we're basically thrusting in the same direction, we would just end up hitting it and start pushing it and wasting Delta V by carrying the dead weight of that stage. So the SRBs just helped pull it away, make sure we were actually detaching it properly, and now I'm just keeping an eye on the ground, trying to find a nice flat spot to drop the base. You can see I'm sort of intermittently pointing retrograde and then also pointing radially out, just to make sure that we're getting some horizontal transport, so we can make sure we're landing in an actually desirable spot. So I guess there's not much more for me to add now really. I'm just keeping an eye on the ground, and it looks like I settled on this spot here, so now we can actually kill off all of our horizontal and vertical speed by pointing directly retrograde, and then right before we hit the surface we can just drop the base. So ready. As you can see, once we stop burning and we drop very, very quickly because of the high gravity, so I want to make sure we're just above the surface before detaching our sky crane quad pod as well. So yep, first thing we're going to do is get our engineer to deploy the solar panels. I believe, at least this might have been a case at one point, if engineers deploy the solar panels, they generate a little bit more electricity, and if scientists deploy the science modules, they generate slightly more science. Or more. I should have looked this up before doing this commentary, but I know there is a difference in how these things operate depending on what kind of Kerbal you use. I wasn't too fussed about it myself because, again, we have a fully maxed out tech tree. I don't really need the science points in this save, but this all looks very cool, and that's why I'm doing it. I don't know why I've suddenly fallen in love with the Breaking Ground pieces again. I know they came out ages ago at this point, but I never really used them that much. But now, ever since that Dres Canyon mission, I've really started liking using them. I think I'm going to use them a lot more. Obviously, I'm only going to show them in a very abridged form when it comes to deploying them, like how I just did. Just the deployment, crossfade, deploy again, rather than showing you the whole back and forth running to and from the deployed science area and, you know, the bit that carried all the parts. But, yeah, I think it's a pretty nice little feature. And it adds a nice aesthetic sort of addition to our surface colony. And I think this is a really, like, you know, true to the word colony here, with sorts of separate buildings, loads of things scattered around on the ground. We've got a rover, we've got a little... I think it's just a really nice sort of looking setup that we've got here. I hope you guys agree. Now, one of the things we're going to do is actually go and try and find a Tylo surface feature to scan using our light scanning arm, which is another reason I wanted to bring a rover with us. Not just to, you know, unpack the whole base, but also to provide us with some additional science from more biomes.
There he goes. That's the Mercedes of Russell down the inside into turn 11. Can Ocon come back on him now?
This is going to be a melee down to turn 12. Build up the speed all the time. The detection point is ahead of the corner, so that is why DRS belongs to George Russell. But it's a good launch off the line. Are we going to go 3 wide? We're on board with Sergio Perez. Who is going to lead into this corner? It's George Russell who manages to get past, and Perez gets through as well. Down goes Ocon. Here's the opportunity for Lewis Hamilton. He's within a second. He's within DRS. Wants to clear both Ferraris. This is the first of them. Carlos Sainz, who got the jump on him in the opening corners of the race, and that was not a contest. Down to turn 12. Hamilton easily taking 3rd place in the race. Here's a lunge from Max Verstappen, trying to take 4th place away, and he does so. So that was as easy as Hamilton's move was 1 lap before.
This might be a pretty standard one. Are we going to see more of a defense than Carlos Sainz did? Yes, but he's got the momentum. Can he pull it off on the outside? No problem there for Lewis Hamilton. And now the chase is on.
Esteban Ocon, who has the most retirements of anyone in the field in Formula 1 2023, is going to extend that unwanted record for the 6th time this year. He will not see the flag. The team have told him to retire the car. Oscar Piastri ailing on the racetrack.
Oscar, recharge on and no full pedal. We need big lifts. I'm afraid we've got to retire the car.
Charles Leclerc leaving a car's width for Max Verstappen. Off the road he goes. Verstappen will apply it flat to the floor, and still they go side by side. Can Verstappen turn it into a traction race? He goes around the outside of the Ferrari. He takes 3rd place in the Grand Prix, and he sets up his bid for victory as he finally is able to take the position. But Charles Leclerc looks like he doesn't want to give it up.
Good defense here. Both on the brakes, just sort of pulling off the brake pedal at this point, aren't you? Just kept on the track.
Yeah, just kept on track. He goes first, trying to force the hand of Hamilton and Norris ahead. A reminder for you, he was 6.4.
But instead was outqualified by him 12 races to 8. The car was clearly terrible, but both drivers were pretty evenly matched throughout the year, with Stroll barely finishing ahead. Still, Sorokin got fired and Lance got rehired. But this time, there was a difference. In the months leading up to the 2019 season, all hell was breaking loose at the Force India team. The team collapsed and was bought by none other than Lawrence Stroll. In a not-so-shock move, he chose his son to be a driver, and Lance jumped ship to the newly named Racing Point team. He had a somewhat low-key, by low-key I mean he was easily beaten by teammate Sergio Perez in both qualifying and race results. By the end of the year, Lance had completed 3 full seasons in F1 and hadn't done a massive amount to dispel the myth of being a paid driver. Even with 1 podium to his name, showing signs of real speed and having flashes of brilliance. The high points were too infrequent, but funnily enough, he was retained for the following year. Daddy Stroll kept the same lineup for the 2020 season, but there were a few changes. The car was more rapid, more illegal, and most importantly, more pink. Joking aside, the RP20 gave the word controversial a whole new meaning. The pink Mercedes, in all its unshamed glory, saw Stroll finish outside the top 10 just once in the entire season. As well as that, he took 2 podium finishes and a blistering pole position in a torrential Turkey.
And for Lance Stroll, in his 75th race in Formula 1, takes pole position.
But teammate Perez took his first race victory in this car, and despite Lance's strong drives, he was once again beaten by the Mexican in both points and qualifying, though the Saturday margins were tighter this time around. A massive crash in the Tuscan Grand Prix and a bizarre flip in Bahrain aren't moments to look back on for Lance. But overall, 2020 was his best season to date, but he was in for a bit of a shock in 2021. Many more millions were exchanged behind the scenes, and all of a sudden Lawrence's squad changed the pink of Racing Point into the green of Aston Martin for 2021. Stroll's new teammate was four-time champion Sebastian Vettel. I mean, at least Lawrence isn't shy of giving his son a challenge. The only problem was that the car was slow, very slow. This season was pretty miserable for everyone involved, and Stroll's best finish during the entire season was his 6th place finish in Qatar. Then in 2022, Aston Martin's driver lineup was unchanged, and so was pretty much everything else. Well, apart from the brand new regulations. But in terms of performance, Seb easily outscored Lance for the second year in a row. Lance didn't perform any miracles in the new ground effect car and drifted through the season as the second fastest driver to wear green. He wasn't doing enough to prove the doubters wrong, and now the number one question on everyone's mind was, how will he fare against Fernando Alonso? Unfortunately for Lance, when Seb packed his bags, his father decided to replace the four-time champion with a two often generated for increased clicks and financial incentives, and you end up not knowing what to believe. If you felt this way, I have too, and here's why I'm excited to be working with Ground News. Ground News gathers news from over 50,000 sources around the world and provides a comprehensive overview of each story, including a visual breakdown of the bias, reliability, and ownership of the sources. Let's take a look at a recent story on how arrests have been made in a plot to blackmail Michael Schumacher's family. When looking at the story, we can see it's been covered by 60 news outlets. This story is quite well spread, and it's been covered by pretty much everyone, with 28% of the coverage from left-leaning sources, 38% from sources in the center, and 34% of coverage from sources that lean right. Now, if you scroll down, you'll see every article about the recent blackmailing, but most importantly, you can compare and see the differences between how the left and right covers the same story. The left emphasizes the legal repercussions the suspects face, noting both fines and prison terms, while the right focuses on past threats and incidents of blackmail. Ground News is a game changer when I'm researching for these videos. It can be so easy to get sucked into one narrative or another, and Ground News has helped me see every side so I get the full picture. Ground News has helped me with F1 news, but it's a whole other ballgame when it comes to politics, as narratives from the extremes of both sides have exploded with social media. Ground News has been the only way for me to burst media bubbles and actually keep critical thinking alive, whilst getting the necessary news and information, and not just ignoring it like it used to. This is exactly why I'm excited about partnering with Ground News. As you guys know, I only promote products I actively use and believe in. So if you would like to try it out for yourself, you can head over to ground.news/dailyfueler. First link in the description. And I've gotten you 40% discount on the Unlimited Access Vantage plan, which is the exact one I have as well. Thank you once again to Ground News for sponsoring this video and helping me on a daily basis with my research. Now, back to the story. On the 21st of March 1979, Attilio Duto ended up getting assassinated in a car bomb attack. I don't know about you, but I think someone who goes out like that probably annoyed quite a few people. So it was clear that Flavio was already dealing in some questionable circles. But of course, in typical Italian fashion, nobody knew who was responsible for his assassination. But the car bomb execution was the calling card of La Cosa Nostra. So after this, it emerged pretty quickly that Duto was bankrupt, and that Flavio's role in his business matters were about to lead him down a dangerous path. And Flavio got arrested. But I'm gonna get to that in just a second. In the meantime, it was clear that he wanted fame and fortune, and that he wasn't going to stop till he got it. I mean, if you look back at the restaurant he opened, it was called Tribula, which was his nickname. It's one of those words that doesn't have a direct translation, but it means someone who has to overcome a lot of obstacles and will do whatever it takes to get what they want. Sounds like Flavio to me, especially the bit about doing whatever it takes, and you'll see what I mean. While all of this was going on in the 70s, he moved to Milan and met Luciano Benetton, founder and owner of, you guessed it, Benetton. Keep in mind, at this time, Benetton was just a clothing company, but it was about to become something a whole lot greater. Before I get into the whole Benetton 4th, on the 5th of January 2010, the tribunal came to a decision, and it was in Flavio's favour. Somehow, he won the appeal. Yeah, seriously. To everyone's surprise, his lifetime ban was overturned. The tribunal said that the main reason they overturned it was because the FIA president, Max Mosley, and Briatore didn't get on at all. Basically, they thought Mosley was extra hard on our guy Flavio because of personal reasons. Guess that's 8-1 to Flavio. After that, Briatore said that even though the ban was overturned, he wouldn't ever return to F1. Things changed though, and in May 2024, it was announced that he started working in F1 again. It's ridiculous, but kinda hilarious that someone who cheated this much could be let back into the series. But the best part about the whole story, well, that would be the team he's joined. Yep, he's back at Renault. Obviously, the team is called Alpine now, but it's still the same company. His job title is Special Supervisor, so if Alpine suddenly starts winning races soon, we might have to look into it. Either way, there's no denying that he's had a spectacular career. Well, spectacular if you ignore the controversy, cheating, scandals, bans, penalties, prison,
and Norris dives for early fresh rubber to change the entire complexion of the Grand Prix. Here the marks. The team goes to work. It's slower than he would have wanted. 3.3 is not a disaster. Verstappen takes the pit lane limiter off. We'll have to bring those tyres into temperature. They're hard tyres, so they'll take a little while to fire up as well. He's got track position over Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz fighting his way past George Russell into the braking zone, and Carlos Sainz gets by. That's up to 5th position. Lewis Hamilton comes in, pivotal moment in the Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton couldn't do a one-stop, and it will mean that this is now the battle for the lead, with Max Verstappen looking for the half-century of victories today. He goes to the apex first, he gets past the Ferrari, and Max Verstappen takes the lead of the US Grand Prix. He's turned 6th on the grid to the lead in the States. As we go on board with the McLaren, looking to make the pass. That's what it looks like to improve up to 2nd place in the Grand Prix. Lando Norris is in P2. So Hamilton takes the slipstream. Leclerc closes the door, but there's nothing he can do. It's 3rd place in the Grand Prix for Lewis Hamilton. Fernando Alonso on the charge for that piece of tarmac. We've seen that go wrong before, but this time it's a sweep by Yuki Tsunoda. As we go on board with Lance Stroll, who's endured a tough couple of races, but he's just fought his way past Yuki Tsunoda for the final point.
But this is a round out. Yeah, it is indeed brave and great.
This is for 2nd place in the Grand Prix. Can Hamilton dive to the inside? Oh, late move from Lando Norris to go to the inside. You can make one move. It was decisive. Hamilton tries to fight his way by, and will he get ahead? Brilliant action between the pair of them. Lewis Hamilton takes 2nd place in the Grand Prix. The 2 Scarlet Ferraris about to go side by side, and there's no battle there for Charles Leclerc.
Fernando Alonso retires the car, and we now know they're seeing on their data logging that he's got some dropouts in floor performance.
Let's see, the up and under should be a change of position, and it is. That's the difference between fresh tyres and old tyres. That's the difference between 6th and 5th in the Grand Prix. This is the final corner of the last lap. The Dutch driver looks up and sees the checkered flag first. For the 50th time in Formula One, Max Verstappen takes victory. He wins the US Grand Prix once again. Lewis Hamilton got the gap down to 2.2 seconds. At the end, Lando Norris takes his 12th career podium. The top 3 with outstanding performances.
Tough race, but still won, so that's good.
Max Verstappen, another win, his 5th in a row. Lewis Hamilton got the gap down to 2.2 seconds across the line as he claimed 2nd place, and Lando Norris with a 6th podium visit of the season. Carlos Sainz 2-stop to good effect and claimed 4th. Sergio Perez moved from 9th to 5th. Charles Leclerc was in 6th, and it was George Russell, Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll's first points since before the summer break. Yuki Tsunoda becomes just the 3rd Japanese driver to score the fastest lap, and he gets 10th place as well.
Suggest we do box to overtake on Leclerc, box to overtake.
So the call comes out. Oh, he's hit the marker coming into the pits, and I think he got away with it, but was he over the pit lane speed limit?
Well, we'll find out pretty soon, but that's a lack of concentration or a drop in concentration for Lando. It was a late call from the team. Let's see if it works out.
In comes Charles Leclerc trying to cover off that pit stop for McLaren. Also in Lewis Hamilton. And he's powering through, he's getting ahead. There he is, told you he was ahead, we got it at the end. Lando Norris leaps up to what will become a net second place in the race. This is Kevin Magnussen trying to pull off another overtake, and this time wasn't as special as the move at the first chicane, contact with Pierre Gasly.
Yep, on that dusty inside line, locks up, and it was always going to be contact if Gasly didn't use the escape road.